Well, in all of this, thank goodness, there's Adam Creighton. You might remember when I last spoke to Adam, brilliant young man. He quoted, as I have, the Rand Corporation, where 4 economists and scientists argued, quote, "We find a positive association between lockdowns," they call them SIPs in America, shelter in place, "a positive association between lockdown policies and excess deaths." Now, excess deaths is a term used in epidemiology that refers to the number of deaths from all causes during a crisis, including those attributable to the crisis conditions. That's locking people up. The research found that lockdowns, and this is obvious, have important and unintended consequences. What else would you expect from isolation but suicide, drug abuse, child abuse, domestic violence? Adam Creighton himself, one of the few voices of sanity in all of this, wrote that lockdowns, quote, "are on track to be seen as amongst the greatest public policy disasters, a triumph of authoritarian hubris, which is excess confidence, over liberal values." Adam joins me from Washington, D.C. I say it every week. Congratulations, you're the hope of the side. But Adam, we're up to our neck in lockdown here.
Thanks, Alan.
Gladys Berejiklian is the latest Dan Andrews. But you make the point that, quote, lockdowns are a bit like, there's a lovely image, Hotel California. Once you check in, the political calculus means governments can't check out. How do we get out of this?
Yes, look, that's right. I think once you go down the elimination lockdown path, you simply can't have an outbreak of any sort, because people will rightly say, well, why did we lock down in the first place? So you have to keep doing it over and over again until some level of vaccination is reached in Australia. Some people say 70%. I can't see how that's ever going to be reached. So they're never going to reach their threshold. So therefore, you're never going to get out of this lockdown cycle.
Absolutely right. Thank you for raising Florida, where the governor legislated against any restrictions in May and has banned vaccine passports. Now, they've got much the same population of Australia, 22 million, we're 25. Last week, there were 23,747 new cases. More than half the state isn't vaccinated, despite its availability. And the governor has said to even contemplate doing any type of lockdown, honestly, said it's insane. Just tell us, therefore, the difference between California, all mad lockdown, and Florida.
Yeah, look, firstly, just on the leadership of the Republican government there, it's just been extraordinary, the contrast with Australia and the bravery, if you like, of his taking on the mainstream media, the mainstream kind of narrative of doom and gloom, to stand up and say we're not going to have any more lockdowns really is quite extraordinary. But just on your second point, in terms of the contrast with California, the point is California was in lockdown for about 15 months on and off. Masks are still compulsory. Children still have to wear masks in schools. But the outcomes have been broadly the same. Their deaths are slightly lower per capita, but of course that doesn't mean anything statistically. The outcomes are broadly the same, and yet they've destroyed their economy. They've set these shocking precedents now. For every time there's a virus in the future, the government's going to lock down. I mean, if you're a small business, you wouldn't even bother setting up a restaurant or a cafe because you don't know how long you're going to be able to operate.
No. And take the two governors. I mean, one is a likely Republican candidate for the presidency. The other bloke, Newsom's facing a recall election.
Yes. Yeah, look, that's right. Certainly Ron DeSantis, I'd say, has become the most popular governor in the United States, and he's widely discussed in Washington as a possible contender if Donald Trump doesn't choose to run. So that remains to be seen. But look, I mean, California, the governor there is extremely unpopular. It's not common to have a recall election.
Just come back to the final point quickly before you go. The one thing you just said before, once you start lockdowns, how do you get out of it? Now, Berejiklian said 80%. We'll never get to 80%. So are we going to be in permanent lockdown?
No. Well, look, I don't think so. But I mean, I think for another 6 to 12 months, probably. I mean, otherwise, one of the premiers or the Prime Minister is going to have to display the leadership of Ron DeSantis. And I think that is extremely unlikely. I mean, last year, the Florida governor said, look, I was wrong to lock down. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. But it's extremely unlikely, I would say, that we'll see that in Australia.
Absolutely. Good to talk to you, Adam. Keep doing wonderful work. You can read Adam Creighton in the Australian newspaper, one of the outstanding minds in Australian journalism.